Good afternoon, investigators. Mike Evans and Casey Pine here with our Friday afternoon weekly investigation news report. Boy, it's a big one today. How are you, Casey?
I'm fantastic. Good to be back after my week off.
After your dramatic week nursing last week, I'm sure you're rested and ready to go again now.
I am.
What have you got for us today, just as a quick preview?
I have a register which is very unique and could cause a bit of trouble just existing, but we'll see.
Oh, I think the person who suggested that register is saying hi to us in the comments right now.
Hi, Jamie.
G'day, Jamie. Good to see you, mate. Glad you're watching. If you're watching, people, say g'day. Just tell us where you are. Say hello. It really sort of helps us to turn it on a bit more when we get some comments and some hellos. Okay, so really big week this week. The big news for Queenslanders is that the Office of Fair Trading have decided that they are going to crack down on marital and relationship surveillance operatives in relation to what they do. Now, I've got to find my little picture of it. So here's the news that came out yesterday. Queensland Government is committed to keeping women and families safe from violence and holding perpetrators to account. An independent Women's Safety and Justice Task Force recently conducted a review to decide how best to create new laws to prevent coercive control and, hi Renee, good to see you, coercive control and help put an end to domestic and family violence. Coercive control is a dangerous form of domestic and family violence is used to instill fear in victims. Perpetrators use tactics such as isolating the woman from her friends and family, tracking her movements, controlling her access to money, where she goes and what she does. Now, this consultative committee in Queensland has decided that private investigators are being used to exert coercive control over victims of domestic violence and domestic abuse. Now, this is nothing new. It's something that's happened for years. And what the controller does is they hire a private investigator to put a tracking device on the victim's car or whatever, and the private investigator follows them around and reports on the activities of that person. It's nothing new. It's been something that's been going on forever and a day. So basically the people do that are relationship investigators. So marital and relationship, g'day, hi everyone, marital and relationship surveillance operatives. It represents about 5% of the licensed private investigators out there. And I'm sure there's a whole stack of people who pretend they're licensed private investigators that are not licensed that do that sort of thing. So the Office of Fair Trading reckons they're going to consult with the investigation industry in Queensland about this coercive control behaviour and recognising it and that sort of thing. That's no problem. There's my contacts down the bottom of Office of Fair Trading. If you want to consult with the industry, you come and talk to the Academy of Investigation Risk and Loss Adjusting Professionals, and we'll hear you out and we'll guide you on what you want to know. Now, as a licensed private investigator for some 32 years and teaching investigations for 21 years, I've never taught a single person to do marital and relationship surveillance investigation. I haven't. As a licensed private investigator, I've never done 1 minute of marital and relationship investigation. So here we're talking about less than 5% of the investigators who are licensed that do that sort of thing. Like myself, most private investigators will never be instructed, asked to do it. And if we were asked to do it, we'd refer them to somebody else or just say, no, we don't do that sort of thing. Now, why don't we do that? Well, it's bloody dangerous. There's a guy that watches this program every week. G'day, Dave. How you going, mate? Good to see ya. Thanks for your feedback, buddy. He went and did a marital and surveillance job in Brisbane about 15 years ago. He got all the evidence that was required by the lady in relation to the person she was married to, and then he got invited back round to her house for some extra work. So he went round there. He was invited in by the lady. He sat down on the couch, and someone put a knife to his throat from behind and said, I want that video back. Now, this licensed private investigator was an ex-police officer. He was in the rapid response groups and all that sort of thing. G'day, George. Good to have you back, mate. Just got a job today from down in your workplace, so that'll be up soon. Great to see you, George. Thanks for saying hi. So this guy had a knife put to his throat and said, I want that video back here in 30 minutes. He was an ex-police officer. He was a reasonably tough man. He was in the SOGs. And within 30 minutes, he had that video back to that household, and that evidence that he obtained and got paid for was destroyed. Now, that's one example of why I tell my students not to do this sort of thing. He was a very shaken up ex-police officer after that incident, and he will freely tell you about it. There was a licensed private investigator up in just above the Sunshine Coast, and he executed a man and a woman in front of their 5 children because the person that engaged him to do the surveillance on his wife told him they were dealing drugs. Now, he had a psychological injury. He had a psychological condition. He went to jail for many years for the murders. The effect on the family was devastating. And that was over a marital and relationship surveillance job that went really badly wrong. Now, the person that instructed him still lives in that community and got away with it. He had his ex-wife murdered by the private investigator, and he got away with it. That's not good, all right? So, officer fair trading, you cannot blanket every investigator as a marital and relationship one. Some of them only do workers' compensation. Some of them only do general insurance. Some of them only do loss adjusting, but they have to have a private investigator's license in order to do that for some clients. So officer fair trading, you're really going to have to think about what you are going to do in relation to that now. If you want to crack down on it, there's a couple of Facebook groups you can go to and join, and you can see all that sort of thing in action and what they get up to. And so certainly crack down on who you have to crack down on, but it's not relevant to 95% of the licensed private investigators in Queensland. And it's a real shame that I have to tell you that. Now, these ladies, they've gone and listened to the victims and, and the stories, and this idiot who ran down his girlfriend, ran her off the road, tipped a car upside down, and then beat her to death with a sewer pipe lid in suburban Surfers Paradise in the mid-morning one day. He's in jail now and she's dead. Child is motherless. And this is what these people were listening to. It had nothing to do with the private investigator, that one I'm sure. But then you get your control freak maniacs like this idiot who killed his wife and 3 children by incinerating them in their car with fuel. As bystanders tried to get in there and help them and save their lives, he discouraged them from saving them. This guy is a real creep. I can't wait to get his photo off my computer. What an asshole. So this is what these people have been listening to. It's highly emotional that they have to listen to all this stuff. I agree. And yes, there are private investigators that do that kind of work. 5% of them, that's it. They are licensed, which they have to be. If you want to look for solutions to this sort of thing, yeah, get in there and speak to them about their risk management, what controls they have. And you'll find that there are ones that have that. And there are ones that started their business yesterday, have no idea, and they'll believe anything they're told, and they're the dangerous ones. And plus the ones that are members of those Facebook groups that I told you about before. They get in there and share stories about their tracking devices and that sort of thing. So if you go here and you look at what they've got to offer for you in relation to safety of women that are experiencing coercive behaviour, they say, get on the website, go here, do that, do this, do that. That is a load of crap. Getting on a website's not going to save your life, okay? What you've got to do is you've got to be realistic about this sort of thing, people. You really have to think about the circumstances you're in, the narcissist who's trying to control you. So you get on the Australian Security Academy's page here on whatever it is. What's that called, Casey?
YouTube.
YouTube. All right. And you type in aggressive surveillance countermeasures and you watch that program if you're one of these people that's going to be a victim of this sort of thing. My 100% guarantee to you is it will give you options, solutions, and help if you find yourself suddenly surprise attacked in a vehicle when you least expected by a fixated idiot that's trying to hurt you. So get onto that webpage. There's absolutely good advice. Some of it asks you to break the law minimally. You'll get a $200 fine, which you can pay off over 6 years. You didn't hurt anyone else. But
you drive around the road on Sunday morning at 8:30 to 10:30 after people have been out on the Saturday night, you'll find people with road rage every Sunday morning. It's scary. They jump out of their car and they rant and rave and they're affected by meth or medication or alcohol, whatever. But it's a real sight to see. You don't get out of the car. You don't confront anyone like that. Drive away and get to safety as soon as possible. So, as I said, people, it's better to be a live coward than it is to be a dead hero.
So when you watch that video, there is an enormous amount of tips and hints that you can use. Way better than what the Office of Fair Trading is saying and this group saying, oh, while someone's chasing you, jump on the website and do this. Don't get on any frigging websites. Take immediate action to save your life, right? Don't get worried about what the law is. There's no rules if someone's trying to kill you or hurt your children. You follow my guide in that video on YouTube and you have options. Because when it happens, people, it'll be a complete surprise. Only a year ago, I got a complete surprise with 7 guys wanted to fight me. Complete and utter surprise. I had no warning. It was coming and it was dangerous and it was on. So you've got to prepare for this sort of thing. If you're in that situation, look for some proper advice. Okay? What the Office of Fair Trading are going to say to these guys is, I'll do this, do that, whatever. No, the victims need options. And we're the private investigation industry providing those options. So jump on there and have a look at that. It's really good advice. And a lot of it came out of the Queensland Royal Commission into Police Corruption. That's where the advice in there came from. So it's pretty serious advice from some pretty serious, experienced people. So what are some of the jobs this week? Let's have a look at what we've got in our Private Investigator Facebook jobs page. This is where you go to see these jobs. So up in far north Queensland, MJM are looking for a surveillance investigator and factual investigator up there. MJM are also looking for factual investigators in Sydney and or Perth. So MJM are very busy at the moment. They're looking for you, people. There's a fraud detection manager at Gallagher Bassett in Brisbane. What a great role. That will be an extremely good job. If I'm going too fast for you, come back tomorrow morning with your cup of coffee and your toast. Watch the replay on our YouTube channel. All right, it's going to be a very cold morning. You might want to put your slippers on and watch the replay of those job vacancies as they come up. If I'm just going to, we've only got 30 minutes and I've taken up quite a bit of Casey's time already. Bad luck, Casey. MJM are also looking for video interviewers. So if you're licensed in South Australia, they may want to talk to you. If you're licensed in Tassie, they may want to talk to you. Director of Serious Incident Investigation Units for Queensland Government, coal mining. What a great job. You'll need a minimum of a diploma of government investigation for that one, people. ProCare are looking for a factual investigator up in Darwin. A claims coordinator is required at the ProCare group in New South Wales in Sydney. And this is a great one. Precise down in Melbourne are after a case manager for their investigations. What a great opportunity with Precise. Kerrigan's in Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast are looking for factual and surveillance investigators. Now with Kerrigan's, you're going to be doing CTP liability, workers' compensation and general insurance. You are not going to be doing any domestic or relationship surveillance for Kerrigan's. It's not going to happen. Okay, no. So it's a serious job that they're offering you there with great opportunities to grow into the future. That's just some of the jobs. I've got plenty more to go. I'm coming back to that. Terrible news this week in relation to CTP liability in Queensland. Young man, 30 years old, was killed in a terrible accident, awful accident in Brisbane when he was putting a car onto a trailer and a truck hit him. The poor police officers and emergency responders that had to deal with that was horrific injuries to his face and head. They had to stand there holding a tarpaulin over the top of him for some time. It would have been awful. So anyway, he's a single bloke. He's dead. He's got CTP liability insurance from the driver of the truck that hit him. They've offered him, his relatives, $35,000. They're saying, QBE, that's what his life's worth. So, of course, Mum, who's 48, has kicked up a fuss because they've gone through some pretty tough times over this, and it's really sad that they've calculated it at the person. Here he is, Aaron. May he rest in peace. But they're saying all he's going to get from the CTP insurer for his life is $35,000. Now, that's an initial offer. And here it is in writing. They've got it there. It says mandatory first offer, $35,000. They also talk about a loss adjuster that came and talked to the family at the scene. One of the saddest things you're ever going to find, because these accidents happen locally, that's what happens. They don't happen 10,000 miles away from home. You'll go to these scenes and inspect them, and you're going to have very upset relatives come and talk to you about emotionally about the accident. You're trying to measure, photograph it and work out the directions and whatever. The skid marks would have been done by the police 3 months ago. This is a long time after that you become involved. But these people come and start talking. They ring up other members of the family. They want answers, and you've just got to say, look, I'm only doing my job. I can't give you answers. I've just got to measure and inspect the scene. And yes, I'm coming to interview you, and we made that appointment, and we'll talk about that then. It's highly emotional. It really is something that catches you surprised as part of your job. But you've got to be ready for that. I maintain constantly, our work is not puppy dogs, kittens and flowers. It's serious, sometimes awfully bad news for really badly injured people, or people who fatally killed. So be prepared to take boxes of tissues to interviews and sometimes to scene inspections. Casey, what have you got for us today?
Oh, well, I'm continuing on the kind of the sad and dangerous theme here. But Jamie, who you often see in the comments, a fantastic student, alumni now of the Australian Security Academy, who loves to continuously learn, and he discovered this website and sent it through to us, which is a fantastic resource, and I'll explain why in a second. Oh gosh, George, I can only imagine. I'm cold on the Gold Coast. I can't imagine how cold it is in Melbourne. Okay. Whoop, here we go. So the website is Offenders Exposed. Now, there has been websites that have popped up like this before, and there are always groups out there that, Airlap, that was last week. You're a week late. It's always the first Friday of every month. Sorry, I keep losing my train of thought. So Offenders Exposed is a website that has been put together by a lady called Tanya Roy. So she started a Facebook group called Australian Sex DV Offenders and Child Abusers Exposed. She started about 5 years when she found out that a sex offender had moved into her area, and she was quite mad, and she is especially mad at Peter Dutton, who has been saying for some time that we will have a sex offender register. And I've given this a lot of thought when Jamie sent it through to us last week. It's one of those things that you don't know if you want to talk about, because we're told over and over again by the media that there's going to be vigilante justice and people are going to do the wrong thing by these sex offenders. And I went and had a look. I signed up and paid my money. And let me just show you a quick clip of Tanya Roy speaking to a current affair about this.
The register is designed to list the name and the details of offenders in the community and where they are. So it'll be narrowed down to a suburb, not a street, not a house. No phone numbers, nothing like that will happen.
So Tanya's gone and used open source intelligence. She has set a whole bunch of, I guess, Google alerts. She checks all of the police news media sites, and she has composed, as you can see on the website, 2,635 different names there. So I signed up, and I have blurred out images and names of some, like 99% of people there, just for the show's sake. And there's one here that I've left open, Michael George Graves. So he's in Springfield Lakes. It gives that he's pled guilty to one charge of possessing child exploitation material and failing to comply with his reporting obligations as a registered child sex offender. And as you can see, that there's information online about him. So as far as I can see, Tanya's getting all of her information through open source ways. She's not guessing, she's not doing silly things and putting information up of people that she doesn't know or that people are sending in and taking guesses. Tanya really wants to create this register so people can be notified not only if there's a sex offender in this in their community, but also if you are dating a new partner and they seem maybe have a bit of a temper, or they've punched a hole in a wall or something, you can go to this website and there will be information on people who have done grievous bodily harm. They've had a number of DVs against them, all kinds of different things. And I think it's a kind of handy resource for that, but it's also, of course, handy for us as private investigators who are asked to look into people where you can easily put a name in and see if it comes up. So it's just a really good resource. It's a great find, Jamie. Thank you for sending it through. And of course, in Australia, we have a domestic violence issue. We have a child sex offender issue. Even I was part of a local basketball club committee last year, and one of our coaches was arrested on court while training the children for possessing child sexual abuse material. And it was horrifying. It was horrifying to know that this young man who we'd known, he'd coached for years at our club, and now he is sitting in a jail cell. So it was really shocking. And of course, oh, you've used it a few times. Yeah, fantastic. Of course, people have to offend and be caught to be put on a register. It's like a lot of parents said to us, well, how didn't you know he needed a blue card to work, to volunteer with you? It's like, well, yes, of course. And he had the blue card and he hadn't have been caught before. So there's not foolproof measures. But to do such a thing like that and to go on a register, if you're going to do that kind of crime, I believe personally that you should go on to such a register, because it's a terrible, terrible thing. And women and children in our community need protection from this kind of thing. So it's a great register, great initiative, Tanya, and I wish you all the best with it. Thanks for sending it through, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie, and very good for OSINT from our point of view. Guarantee
Absolutely.
A lot of people on there, as they're going to court, you can go and serve them documents that need serving while they're walking out of court. So that's great news. Casey, you've got to take off and deal with a plumber.
Yes, I do. Working back on Friday, fun.
I hope it all worked on time. So thanks for that. We'll see you next week. Look forward to it.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Okay, about AirLap, as was raised by James, yes, last week you had the opportunity to get 3 CPD points for psychological investigation workers' compensation if you're a member of AirLap. If you didn't get that, flick me an email and I'll send you the link so you can get that. Very important to have those CPD points to maintain your status that you have. Really big news in Queensland this week. We've been talking about the last 4 weeks, perverts who take photos of women from behind and wank themselves in the privacy of their own computer at home. That was one down in Melbourne. Then there was this guy who, on the right-hand side, who used to email himself videos and photos of people who were at Dreamworld or Movie World, one or the other, I can't remember now, and very enterprising pervert, that one. And that's how he got his jollies off at home. So he was sacked straight away from his job. And I told you about some security guards in the gaming industry that all lost their jobs after almost 30 years, instantly overnight. This guy lost his job from Dreamworld. That's what they do. They can't have that happening in the workplace. I told you about a licensed private investigator that was sharing images of his students on social networking without their consent. And I told you there was one lady, she's looking at $150,000 minimum in compensation from her workplace for the photo that he took of her and shared. Now, am I full of shit, or is that true? Well, coming up this week, the Reject Shop is being sued over a creep staffer. This is a Reject Shop up in Brisbane. Now, what's happened is the lady's gone into the Reject Shop, she's looked down, and this creep has stuck a camera down on the floor underneath her, and she's caught him in the act. Now, her husband's gone and confronted the Reject Shop about it, and they go, oh, no, he's just taking photos of the stock, right? Okay, so that's all it was. That's what he told us. So we believe him and we don't believe you. She's very upset about it. I mean, her view is, look, it's not right to do that. It's my body. It's not his choice of what he's going to go and look at and wank himself about at home later, or share in his little network, and that's a big possibility. Now, I don't know if he actually succeeded in taking the photo of her. He may have, he may not have. She might have caught him in time. It might not be there, but she is claiming $420,000 through the District Court of Queensland because she's developed post-traumatic stress disorder over the incident. Like she said, it's her body. And they didn't show, they said they didn't have any CCTV. He was taking photos of stock in the stock bays. What a load of crap. Anyone that's worked in retail or is working in retail, are you taking photos of stock in the stock bays with your mobile phone? Or are you using a drone and the proper device? Who knows? So he's upskirting. What's upskirting all about? And how much trouble can you get into in Queensland just taking a photo of someone else without their consent? You can go to jail for 3 years. Better watch the video.
Whether or not the behaviour amounts to an offence can be decided by the police in relation to their charges. This will be done when the complainant takes their complaint to police. So what do the laws say about this kind of behaviour, and what rights to privacy do people have when it comes to indecent photographs taken by others? The act of upskirting is generally defined as taking a sexually intrusive photograph of someone without their permission. It's not recent. There have been incidents where people, mostly men, have placed cameras on their shoes and photographed up women's skirts for prurient purposes. Basically, they go home and wank themselves. Other instances have involved placing cameras under stairs where women in dresses or skirts were likely to pass by. They also attend games of hockey and netball. Upskirting can also include indecent filming of anyone without their knowledge, including photographing topless female bathers at a public beach, covertly filming women undressing in their bedrooms, or installing a camera in a dressing room, public toilet, swimming pool or changing room. With every new electronic device that comes onto the market comes the possibility of inappropriate use and thus the creation of new criminal offences. We saw this with the advent of small listening devices. With this technology, it's now possible to record private conversations, so legislators had to create offences under the law to deal with any inappropriate use. The same thing happened with now small and very affordable drones, which made it possible to capture images of people in compromising positions even from a distance. Our laws have been adjusted accordingly. Legislators have responded to this in New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia and Tasmania. Slightly different in every state. The Queensland law is more broadly worded than the New South Wales, Victorian or South Australian laws, since it makes it an offence to take someone's picture in general, rather than specifying that it needs to be sexually explicit. The maximum penalty for such an offence in Queensland is 3 years imprisonment. Just like any criminal offence, the prosecution in a case like this must first determine before laying a charge whether there's enough evidence that could lead to a conviction, moreover whether there's such a prosecution is in the public interest. Once the decision to charge is made, the conviction will only be possible if the accused pleads guilty or is found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. This will be decided by a judge and not a jury because it's a misdemeanour. The role of the criminal law here is to bring the offending behaviour to account while also providing a deterrent for the future conduct of that person or any other person contemplating such an act. As with any criminal law, its overarching purpose is to indicate society's disdain for the behaviour. The need to protect victims from such egregious and lewd behaviour is an important consideration too. Any decision by a Queensland magistrate to convict a person alleged to have taken an indecent photo would hang on these 3 facts. 1. The photo was taken by the person accused. 2. Whether the victim believes she had been afforded privacy. She should have been afforded privacy, my apologies. And 3. Whether she have offered no consent to have the photo taken. Other mitigating factors might come into play, however, including whether the photograph was impulsive or not, premeditated, whether the image was immediately deleted if it was shared, and whether the alleged offender showed any regret or remorse for his actions.
Wow. So, as I told you some 3 weeks ago, a licensed private investigator who owns a registered training organisation was working for another registered training organisation, took some images of some women in class from behind and shared them on social networking. One lady who works as an inspector in Toowoomba for the Toowoomba Council, I think she's going to be very well off as a result of that behaviour, and the insurer from the Toowoomba Council will be recovering that money from the registered training organisation the licensed private investigator was working for. Plus, the training contract definitely be ripped up. So you can't do it in class, you can't do it in a reject shop, you can't do it in Queensland. It's very serious matter. So further on, we've got some more jobs. This is beauty. In New South Wales, AB Investigations. You'll see this job on our Facebook page in its entirety. So join our Australian Private Investigator Corporate and Government Investigation job vacancy Facebook page. That's there, so you can see what jobs have come up. There's a whole lot more. I'm not showing you them all. There's some real beauties this week. Like I said, there's one for the Victorian Building Authority, which I didn't keep a copy of, but it is here, and you can see it there. 10% superannuation they get. How about that? That's well above the average. Good on you, Victorian Building Authority. You do a great job. Other job that's available, there's 3 jobs going in Queensland. One for the Townsville City Council, one for the Mackay Regional Council, and there's one there for the Central Highlands Regional Council. So there's some opportunities in local government in Queensland as a compliance enforcement officer or inspector, whatever they might call it. They all call it different things. So if you want to apply for those 3 jobs in Queensland, remember there's that teacher that takes photos of everybody. So what you should do is just confirm with the council's contracted compliance organisation, if that is Brisbane City Council, Toowoomba City Council, Sunshine Coast or Fraser City Councils, and just sext your application directly to your instructor for contactless, effortless, pass the class fast tracking. What a shame. That is just ridiculous. You cannot take photos without consent of students in class. In Queensland, it's an offence that has 3 years imprisonment. maximum attached to it. Yeah, don't try it at home. All right, ignore that advice. Let's see, what else have I got here? You have been watching episode 151 of SpyCurious. I think that's 1,019 weeks of 21 years of the Australian Security Academy. This is news for the industry, licensed investigators in the industry about what's happening. Big news that this lady's claiming $420,000 for the upskirting behaviour this week in the District Court of Queensland. Be interesting to see. There'll be a confidentiality agreement. No one will ever know what she gets. It's a bit of an ambit claim, I reckon. You know, she might be very happy with $417,000 and sign a release, discharge and an indemnity on that. The Reject Shop will try and recover their money from the creep that did it. He might win Tats Lotto one day, and they'll make sure if he does that they'll get his money. They might even go for his superannuation 25 years from now. Who knows? So very interesting times up here in Queensland, in particular with the Office of Fair Trading blanket looking at giving training to private investigators that have no relevance to what they're trying to regulate. In fact, the Office of Fair Trading are not very good regulators as far as it comes to private investigators. They're going to have to get in touch with their lab and consult in relation to that so they're better educated before they start sending out information like they did based on that report. Nobody likes violence against anybody domestically. It happens to men, it happens to women. If you are ever considering that you might become a victim of some kind of domestic violence, coercion by a narcissist, right, and they all are, okay, get on our YouTube channel and type in aggressive surveillance countermeasures. You'll really learn something about how to save or secure your health and safety if you've got a fixated nutcase that you've just cut off in traffic, or you married, or you live with, or you met on Tinder, or whatever, what to do to help you get away from that situation and possibly save you. Because you don't want to be like the lady who had her car tipped over and then her boyfriend smashed her head in with a iron sewer pipe cover. Okay, so it's all about protecting yourself, preserving yourself, and thinking ahead. Got all the jobs done, got all those jobs done, got all that, people. That's the end of episode 151 of SpyCurious.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
I did write to all the investigation industry associations some year and a half ago about how to solve the problem of relationship and marital surveillance investigators doing the wrong thing. And the easiest way to do that is to implement compulsory drug tests for licensed investigators who do that sort of work.
When the pimp's in the crib, ma, drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. When the pigs try to get at you, park it like it's
right?
Okay, so something to think about. And I'm talking heroin, ice, that sort of thing happens in every industry. It's one way of addressing that kind of behaviour that they're worried about with anyone taking any job at all to assist in the coercive control assertion. There are decent investigation agencies that do a surveillance on marital and relationship. We had one of them comment on here today. And I would recommend that investigation agency to anyone. And I know that that investigation agency would have the appropriate risk management in place. The Office of Fair Trading is going to have to come right out and say, Okay, 100% of the Queensland investigation industry for licensed investigators and their trainers, teachers and mentors and business owners. Here's 5 examples of how that was done. This was the situation. This was the guy. This is the investigator he hired. This is what the investigator did. Now you come out and say that, you'll get the investigation industry behind you, Office of Fair Trading. But if you do it all top secret, we're enforcing compliance on everybody, even those who don't do it, and making life hard for them, it isn't going to fly. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy, and I will see you same time next Secret Week.